What's up, guys? This is Matthew here from Local Demo Service, and I wanted to give you guys a quick video on how we have grown our company from nothing to now being a multi-million-dollar company a year. And I'm just hanging out here in my organic garden. By the way, if you're in the CPG space, everybody should have their own garden at home, growing your own organic food. The food system nowadays, unfortunately, it's mostly factory farming. So get out there, grow your own garden. We've got a big old garden here with potatoes that are ready to be harvested. I got some sage over there. We got some different types of squash and pumpkin. We've got some kale. So we got a little bit of everything here. And yeah, so let's talk about it. So November 2015 is the day that I launched our company, and it all started on a prayer. I was a competitive athlete and coach doing CrossFit and martial arts. I did that since 6th grade, and by the time I was 21 years old, I was making good money, mainly in the CrossFit industry, coaching and competing. Right around that time, I felt like God was calling me to follow Christ, and I didn't know Christ before that, so that's a story for another day. We'll talk about that. But in that season, I realized that God was calling me away from that industry because it just wasn't a good industry. And if anybody's seen that meme where it's Jesus, Yeshua, holding a stuffed animal, and then he's got a bigger one behind his back, and then the kid is crying because they don't want to let go of the smaller teddy bear, but there's a much bigger one behind his back. That's exactly what the fitness industry was for me. You know, I was really good at it. I loved it. I made good money, not great money. And so it was fairly hard to give up, but I had to do it. I knew God was calling me away from it. And there were also just other things too, like a lot of women in minimal clothing trying to rip my shirt off, very inappropriate for a wife and kids. So it just wasn't a good industry, right? So I laid that down and started bagging coffee at $9 an hour. So I went from making, 50 plus an hour to making $9 an hour bagging coffee, feeling like a complete loser. So I took a step in faith, took a major pay cut and decided, you know what, I need to do something different to build up a good future for my wife and kids. And this season taught me a couple things. One, it taught me walking in faith. And two, it taught me how important it is to hustle, because I had to work 3 jobs at that time to even come close to how much money I was making before. And so started bagging coffee. My wife and I had to fly back to Hawaii to finish our college degrees. And so right before we flew back, we said our first prayer together that I remember. We just prayed the simplest prayer. God, can you help us work at a farmer's market booth together? That's what we asked. We both like natural foods. We both knew that eating organic was really important and good for the environment. And that's, our kids were going to inherit the world that we passed them. So working in organic and natural foods, we knew was the mission. And on top of that, we had just started eating 100% organic. We were broke, but we knew that if we don't eat 100% organic, we're eating more toxins. And 2, we're also we're allowing the spraying of pesticides around the world, and that's not good. So we switched to eating 100% organic. We said that prayer right before we flew back to Hawaii, the day after we fly to Hawaii, and then from there, we unpack our bags in our new rental, go straight to Whole Foods Kahala, which was our favorite date. And we go there, we're grocery shopping, and I see a guy sampling out coffee. And I'm like, oh, shoot, I was just bagging coffee. I can talk to this guy. So I started talking to him about specialty coffee beans, Sumatran and Guatemalan and, African coffee and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, you know what? I really like you. Take my business card. Or meet me across the street at this cafe. I want you to meet my business partner. So we do our shopping, and then we go after his shift, go meet him across the street at this cafe. And we go to shake his business partner's hand. And before I even shake his hand, he's like, wow, you guys look like you would be amazing for our farmer's market business. So I looked at my wife and I was like, that's God right there, because we prayed about working at a farmer's market together, and they just offered us a job at a farmer's market. But it gets even crazier. Day 1, working at the farmer's market, the 2 business partners have a falling out, and the guy who hired us was like, I need to get a job because that guy was paying me, and he gets a job in New York. So he gives us the farmer's market business. Humble prayer, walked in faith, and we were given a business. We didn't ask for a business, right? And he flies to New York. He emails me and says, hey, you know what? You can make some extra money doing what I was doing at Whole Foods, sampling out coffee and stuff. So I was like, sweet, get me connected with the coffee brand, right? He connects me with the coffee brand. I go do my first demo for them. At the demo, I meet a person who has a macadamia nut farm on Big Island. They need sampling at Whole Foods. So I was like, sweet. So I start sampling for them. The next demo, I'm sampling macadamia nuts. A guy who grows cacao needs his chocolate bars sampled. Sweet. I'll sample for you. I got 3 clients already. All of a sudden, I meet a green tea grower on Big Island. They need sampling. So it just started growing. And then eventually we built a relationship with the Department of Agriculture. They had a Hawaiian Seal of Quality program. That was our main mission. That's also why we're called local demo service, because local, in my opinion, it's the most important. It's the most important selling point and the most important thing in food. Like, I'm growing my own food here because I think when you grow your own food, it's better for the environment. It's better for you. It's good all around, right? Teach you some real skills. So we started working with them. So this was between 2015 and 2017. We tried to get a grant from the Department of Agriculture because we were a walk-in billboard for them. They would just give us constant stuff because they loved us. Unfortunately, when we tried to go for this grant, we didn't get it. There was a whole bureaucracy with Hawaii. The way the politics work out there, it's not good for business. Unfortunately, another company got it, grants, like $100,000, and they did one event with $100,000. And they do this every single year. We were doing 2 of those a day, every day for months straight. And so with that 100K, we would have done, probably hundreds, if not, 1,000 events for that 100K. So that kind of broke my heart. We decided we had to move back to the mainland. We had a family member that was sick. And so that forced us to hire somebody in Hawaii. So this was around April of 27. Went from prayer, got the business, scaled it for a couple of years, Department of Agriculture, and moved back to the mainland on 27. That really opened our minds because we realized, okay, we hire somebody, they can run the business out there. We can do this again. We started hiring here in Idaho and scaling up this part of the company. That was awesome. We grew that, built an internal team, hired employees, hired a director of operations, which was awesome, and started to learn that. It was a huge struggle. We had tons of turnover, but we were growing and it was an amazing opportunity. We did that all the way up until 2020. What happened on 2020? Well, on March 15th, I got the notification that we need to shut down our business. The government was cracking down on anything going on, masks, social distancing, all that kind of stuff. That put us in a really hard spot. So during that time, I shut down my business. I had owed contracts, I had a mortgage, and I had children and a wife. And I also had a farm, and there was just a lot going on. So this was a really hard time for me. I went under a deep economic depression. I had family members talking about me behind my back, saying that I didn't know what I was doing because, they had jobs, stable careers, that kind of stuff, and my business shut down. I had to sell all my assets. I sold all my gym equipment. I sold everything I owned to pay my mortgage and to feed my family. Working out keeps me from going crazy while, scaling a multi-million-dollar company. I started lifting rocks and trees for my workout, doing parkour in the woods, and started rolling jujitsu with people. That's how I kept sane. I told my wife to take me off the food budget. So I started harvesting dandelions and other wild plants, morel mushrooms. I was hunting, so I was eating venison and eating snowshoe hare to keep myself fed during this season. And yeah, really just struggled for a long time. Found a lot of gigs on the side, started buying gyms and flipping them. I bought an archery company, sold all the equipment. That was what was keeping me going for a while. And I just putted along for, a good year and a half until June of 2022. Whole Foods reopened their doors for sampling events. This was a life changer for me. I had an old brand ambassador who reached out to me in Seattle and said, hey, they just opened their doors, hire me back. Boom, hired them. I had other brand ambassadors that were calling me every single week, like, hey, as soon as you open your doors, we want to work for you. Hired them back, right? So we started scaling up again from there. From that year till 2025, we just rebuilt the company. Got it back to 6 figures, a low six figures, mind you, in revenue and profits. It was a real struggle, but it was going, right? And then around August of 2025, I was like ripping my clothes out in the woods because I was angry because we were at the same financials as the previous year. And I was like, come on, we can't just keep doing this, God. Like, we keep doing the same amount of 6 figures every year. It's right around the same amount, within a 20K range. We can't keep doing this every year. Right after that, God opened up the dial. The switch got turned on, and all of a sudden, boom, like that overnight, we had a 6-figure contract come in. So what we normally do in a year was now in 1 month. And then we did that every single month. And then all of a sudden we started getting bigger contracts, right? So basically last year in September, October is when we started going crazy. And so we 5x'd our best year in 3 months last year. And this year we've been doing 6 figures a month, which is mind-boggling for me. So all this is to say that God is good, and you stick to the path, you're going to make it someday. I want to add one more thing to the story. During that financial crash in COVID, I was very stressed in April, and I had just created a vision board for the company, for my family, for my marriage, all the areas of my life I wanted to improve. And one of the things I put on there, the very first thing was I wanted to plant so many flowers that one day my wife wakes up and she sees a beautiful flower garden and she cries because of how many flowers she sees. And I just bought a bag of lilies and then boom, business crashed, right? So I was stressed out. I knew I could still work on that. So I went out in a hailstorm. I put on one of those rice picker hats, went into the hailstorm, pouring lightning, thunder coming down. I was so stressed, and I started just planting these lilies by hand, barefoot in the ground, getting pelted by chunks of ice that were falling from the sky. Thunder was crashing down, and the discomfort of the storm took me out of my economic stress. It was almost like God was so much more powerful than my economic problems. And the Bible verse came into my head, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are there with me. And that's what went through my head during that time. So God can do anything. If you're in a valley right now, then just know that God is there with you and you can call on him anytime. And those valleys, planting seeds during those valleys, that's what reaps a harvest years later. That's creates generational either wealth, whether it's financially, maritally, or whatever category of life. It's the story of our business and where we're at now. We're on track to do an amazing amount of revenue and cash flow this year. I've got speaking engagements now. I'm getting paid to fly out and speak and be a keynote speaker. We're going on to our 11th year. It'll be our 11th year in November. So just remember, whatever God sets up for you, nobody can take away from you. So keep walking the path. God's got your back. God bless you. Peace.